Okay, good morning everyone, and welcome back to another kapitel of Tehillim that we're going to be learning together in our weekly Tehillim shir. We're holding already by Tehillim number 80a, and this is a fascinating Tehillim, very much related to things that are going on in the world today in general, and certainly in the world of Klal Yisrael. So it says like this: Lamatseach el Shoshanim, Hashem will grant victory. Shoshanim for the roses. Eidus la'asaf mizmor, a testimony, a mizmor, a psalm of Asaf. We've mentioned before that all of these Tehillims that we're learning right now were written by Asaf HaNavi, the prophet, and it continues along in his way. But this is a familiar idea that we've spoken about in Tehillim before, and that is that Klal Yisrael is likened to Shoshanim. We are likened to roses. Now, what is it about a rose that is so significant that Klal Yisrael itself is likened to the Shoshanim? So, Rav Hirsch points out over here, and he's pointed out in other places as well in Tehillim, that the rose itself is a very unique and very distinct flower. It is perhaps one of the only flowers that there are in the world that is surrounded by thorns. Klal Yisrael is called Shoshanim Bein HaChachuchim. We are the roses amongst the thorns. Now, why is that? So Rav Hirsch writes earlier that the fact that the rose itself is surrounded by the thorns, it shows that it is a very delicate and fragile type of a flower, and it needs the thorns to be around it to be able to protect it from the enemies, from the bugs, from the animals, from the different things that would like to come and attack that rose, that beautiful, beautiful rose that is blooming. And however, if the winds will come along and start blowing against the thorns, so then those thorns are going to blow against the rose, and they're going to attack the rose as well. So the thorns which you think are protecting it could end up hurting it. However, if the rose is standing tall, and the rose is standing straight, and the rose is moving upwards, so then the thorns don't attack the rose. They end up fending off and warding away the enemies that are there. Says Rav Hirsch, the same exact thing is with Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael is a Shoshana, it is a rose, and is surrounded by thorns. What are the thorns that are surrounding Klal Yisrael? These are our protection. What is the protection of the Jewish people? The protection is Hashem. The protection is the Torah. The protection is the mitzvahs. And as long as Klal Yisrael is resilient, and they are standing straight, and they are standing strong, and we are committed, and we are dedicated, and we are doing the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so then those thorns which are protection, they will ward off the enemies, they will keep our people, the people that are against us, away from us, and whatever spiritual peril, whatever physical peril, whatever distress the Jewish people are in, the thorns, which are our might, which are our strength, which is our tenacity, our commitment, our dedication, our connection to Torah, to mitzvahs, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it will be able to fend off the enemies that are there, that are lurking around at every single corner. However, if we are bent over and we are weak, and we are not standing strong, and we are not standing tall, and we are not behaving in the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to behave, then the very things which normally protect us, so they turn into thorns that are against us, and when the winds of the world will blow, and the nations will taunt, and the ideologies and the cultures of the world will begin picking up around us, so it will blow on us the things that are usually pointing out and protecting us, so then it turns almost like into an enemy and turns on us and ends up hurting us and damaging Klal Yisrael. So the secret of our success, says Dovid HaMelech or Asaf, says Rav Hirsch over here, is how strong are we going to stand to allow the roses to surround us and ward off the enemy? Or how weak are we going to be that the thorns will turn against us, and they will pierce us, and they will damage us, and they will nick us? Says the pasuk over here, Lam natseach el shoshanim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu grants victory to the roses. That means, and edus, a testimony, that when we will live up to the edus, to the testimony of Hashem, when we will follow the ways of the Torah and the mitzvahs, and we will be linked in to our heritage and to our past, and we will be people that are proud of what it means to be a Jew. So then says the Tehillim over here, you have nothing to worry about, nothing to fear. The thorns are pushing away all the enemies. And the way that he writes it over here is, the roses have been provided with thorns to fend off any attack. So too, Klal Yisrael has been prepared from the time of its establishment for all the attacks that will come and threaten us, but we've been supplied with the armor to repel these assaults. What is the armor? As we are saying, your Torah, your mitzvahs, your connection to Hashem, your ruchnius, your spirituality, your tefillah, as we're going to see in today's Tehillim. All of that are going to be the armor that we have that will be able to repel the assaults of the enemy that are against us. Now, Rav Hirsch and Rashi, and really all the Mefarshim, all the commentators explain over here, this Tehillim is talking about the different exiles, the different gullus that Klal Yisrael has been in throughout the generations. Whether it is Bavel and Rome, whether it is the 10 tribes, and whether it is Yavan, that is almost, I would say, at this point, not the nature of what we're going to focus in on. But the Tehillim over here is describing the different nations that have risen up against us and put us into the gullus, put us into the exile, and how Klal Yisrael struggled in every single exile that we were in, and yet we found the ways to stand tall, to be strong, to be dedicated, and stay close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then through our mitzvahs and our tefillah and our yiras shamayim, our fear of heaven, and our emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that Hashem is the one that is running the world and taking care of us, we were zeicha to overcome every gullus that there is, except one. The Beis HaMikdash was destroyed 2,000 years ago. The Romans came in, they defeated us, they destroyed the Beis HaMikdash down to the ground. All that's left right now is Kaisa Maravi, the western wall, remnants lying around in the areas of the old city of Yerushalayim, but the Beis HaMikdash is gone, and it's been lying in ruins for 2,000 years. Every other gullus, every other exile, we found ways to correct ourselves and bring ourselves back to Hashem. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought in, from Bavel, He brought us back. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought us back in, and He allowed us to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. However, since the destruction of the Second Temple 2,000 years ago, we're still in the gullus, in the exile, in the Dalit Kanfes Arts, the 4 corners of the world. So what have we not yet learned in this exile that means that our thorns, which are supposed to protect us and supposed to ward off the enemy, why is it that they still seem to be attacking us and hurting us, and we cannot find our way back to Yerushalayim Yer HaKodesh? So this is really the nature of this Tehillim over here, and what it is that we need to work on, what we have to compensate and to change ourselves and elevate ourselves, that we should be worthy of a geula of redemption, just like they were in the previous generations. When they were in Mitzrayim in Egypt, they were redeemed. When they went into the gullus in Bavel, into Babylonia, they were redeemed. When the Greeks came along and they fought against the Jewish people and we pushed them out, we were redeemed. But this one, there's been no redemption yet, and we're waiting. This is going to be the coming of Mashiach. We're waiting for that. What do we need to work on? So perhaps as we go through this Tehillim, we'll find some of the answers to this question over here. Now, one of the things that is very clear from the words of the Tehillim, from the words of, certainly over here, Rav Hirsch, in the very beginning, he writes over here, the edus, the testimony that we must be involved with over here is, we must continue to keep the testimony of Klal Yisrael alive. We must continue to rely upon our Masorah that we have from all the generations, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that has taken us out of every other Chorban, every other destruction, every other Gullus, and we are certain that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to do that now as well. Says Rav Hirsch, and that idea, that concept, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has never abandoned the Jewish people. As you look through history, it's miraculous what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has done. So too, that will give us comfort and encouragement. And in the darkest of days, we will stay spiritually steadfast and remain with Hashem. And it is a testimony to the certainty of the ultimate redemption that we are going to receive. And that means that a Jew should never ever give up hope. And never ever think for a minute, we are doomed and we are destined to live a life of gullus, of exile forever. On the other hand, just like I saw Hashem take them out of Mitzrayim, just like I saw him take them out of Bavel, just like I saw him push away the Yevanim, just as I saw that when they were coming into Eretz Yisrael with Yehoshua, he pushed away the 7 nations that were there and he got rid of them so that we could overcome and overtake the land. So I am certain that although that we have been in the exile for 2,000 years already, and we have not been able to get back to Eretz Yisrael, and just today there were a missile that fell on the land of Israel itself. Even in the great Ben Gurion airport over there, even there the missiles are falling.
They missed it already.
They missed the building itself, but they got very close to the building, and unfortunately it was a tragedy over there. And there's fires, and there's war, and there's many things that are going on over there. And if you look in America, as we've spoken about many times before, the gullus, the exile, has very much impacted the Jewish people. We're holding right now to somewhere between 75 to 80% assimilation in America and throughout the world, which means that maybe possibly 8 out of 10 Jews are marrying out of their faith. 8 out of 10 Jews don't know what it means to be a Jew. 8 out of 10 Jews are eating chazah, are eating treif on Yom Kippur itself. And there's only a small amount that are trying to remain as faithful as they possibly can to Hashem. Says Rav Hirsch, you have to know that there's edus, there's testimony that echoes throughout every generation. And that is HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out of every single gullus that there ever was in our nation's history. And just like he took us out of there, he will take us out of here as well. And we don't despair, and we don't give up hope, and we hold on as much as we possibly can, knowing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is on our side. He's not on the side of our enemies. Now that being said, if we look into the next verse, Raya Yisrael, the shepherd of Klal Yisrael, Azino, incline your ear, listen carefully. Noye Katzain Yosef, you lead Yosef like a flock, meaning lead the Jewish people like a flock. Yoshev HaKruvim Oifia, you are the one that is enthroned above the Kruvim. The Kruvim, you remember, are those angelic-like features or statue-like and angels that are inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim over the Ark of Hashem. Haifia, let them shine forth. Says Rav Gamliel Rabinovich on these words over here. And this is going to be perhaps the key to us being redeemed from our gullus. The Metzudas Dovid writes on these words, Roya, what does it mean that you are the shepherd? At Roya Yisrael, you are the shepherd of Klal Yisrael. Kashoiv Tfilasenu, listen carefully to our prayers. You are our shepherd, and therefore you should listen carefully to our prayers. Just like the shepherd that watches over his flock, He's always watching to see which of his animals are eating what they need to, are getting the rest that they need to, are in safety the way they need to be. And he hears the cries of the sheep that are in danger. He hears the groans of the sheep that are hungry and that are thirsty. He hears the complaining of the sheep that are working too hard, climbing up the hills and the pastures. And the Raya, the shepherd, takes care of his flock and makes sure that they have everything that they need so they can produce the best amount of wool, the best amount of meat, so that they'll be able to be served on the tables of Malachim, of the kings. So to Ribbono Sh'olam, you are our Roya, you are our shepherd, and therefore, Kol Shoiv Tfilasenu, listen to our tefillahs that we are davening to you. Says Rav Gamliel, Yesh Levayir Derech Remez, we can explain this in Derech Remez, in the way of a hint message that Hashem is giving. Roya Yisrael Azinu, the shepherd of Klal Yisrael that is listening, when will Hashem, Shurei Yisrael, that is the shepherd of the Jewish people, Mazin the Kol Tfilas B'nei Yisrael, when does he incline his ear? When does he bend his ear? When does he listen carefully to our prayers? Says Rav Gamliel, Noyeg Ketzoin Yosef. When we behave like the flock of Yosef, when we look at ourselves as a flock before Hashem, when we, the Jewish nation, hold ourselves lowly before Hashem, we look at ourselves just like a sheep, like a flock. I am successful. I made a lot of money. I'm accomplishing great things. I'm doing so much. I get in my new car in the morning and I feel so good with all the bells and whistles. I stand and I ate a delicious meal in one of the fine eateries or restaurants around town. I've got a beautiful family. I have all these things going for me. I'm so great. No. It doesn't work like that. When a person steps up to the plate of davening in that mind frame, and he davens to Hashem, and he's davening from a place of, I have so much, and I am so good, and I am so great, you should know that it's very difficult for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to listen to your tefillos, to your prayers at that time. But when you come to Hashem, and you look at yourself, Kitzayin, you're a member of the flock. You're no really different than just one of the sheep that are in the corral of the shepherd. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Sheimeya L'Kol Tfilasam. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will listen to the voice of our prayers. Kamo Shabir Rashi, like Rashi writes over here, Shebnei Yisrael Nikru al Shemo Shel Yosef. Klal Yisrael is called on the name of Yosef. We are like a nation of Yosef. What does that mean? Now Rashi says one thing over here. Rashi seems to say that since that Yosef was the one who saved all of Mitzrayim, he came in and he comes up with the master plan of how the years of famine and the years of plenty, and he makes the storehouse and he saves all the food. So everybody was living based on the abundance that Yosef was able to bring into this world, and therefore Nikra al Shem Yosef, were called on the name of Yosef. But perhaps what he's saying over here is even deeper than that. Yosef is the one that was able to withstand all of the tests there in Mitzrayim. Yosef is the one that was separated far from his father, far from his family, far from his yeshivas, from his learning, from everything. He was all alone by himself in Mitzrayim. And nevertheless, and notwithstanding, Yosef became Yosef HaTzadik, the righteous Yosef, because in his great humility, although he knew his greatness, but in his great humility, he continued to keep himself very close to the Ribbono Sh'olam. He had power. He had grandeur, he had majesty, he was second in command to Paro, he was the second leading most powerful person in all of Egypt. Nevertheless, Yosef never took his focus off of Hashem. He remained a humble Jew inside, and he remained humble like a tzayin, just like one of the flock of the Ribbono Sh'olam, one of the sheep in the pasture of Hashem. And he allowed HaKadosh Baruch Hu to take care of him in every single way. Hashem roi lo echsar. Hashem is my shepherd, I shall not want. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're going to take care of me. On my own, even with all the power and the fancy clothing and all the accolades and all the people that are vying for my time and my presence, I'm nothing, Hashem. I'm nothing without you. Like Yosef HaTzadik said, he's whisked out of the dungeon, he's brought before Paro, and what, in fact, does he tell Paro when Paro says, I heard you know how to interpret dreams? Me? It's not me, said Yosef. It's all Hashem. If Hashem will decide to interpret the dream right now, then you'll have an interpretation. But if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to interpret, then you'll have no interpretation. So although Yosef is standing in front of the king, the most powerful king of that world at the time, he did not defer to himself. He did not take credit for himself. He remained with great humility and Yiras Shamayim and Emunah and Bitachon in Hashem. Hashem is the one that is going to explain everything. We are called Al Shemai Shel Yosef. We are a nation that is called on the name of Yosef. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter how much power you have. It doesn't matter how much you have accomplished. We are nothing compared to Hashem. And as long as we stay humble before Hashem, like the sheep that are in the flock of the Raya of the shepherd, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to bend his ear and he's going to hear what we have to say. And that's why it says, Yoshev HaKruvim Oifiyah, you HaKadosh Baruch Hu are sitting like the Kruvim, like the great angelic figures that were there inside the Holy of Holies. V'nirmaz bezen, he's hinting to, since that the Jewish people will live their lives with shiflus ruach, with a lowly spirit and humility, yizku legilui ashchina, they will merit to have a revelation of the Shechina, kederech shenizgala al Elokim be'eish ha'yoyeshe ben Kruvim, the same way. The same way that Hashem revealed himself between the Kruvim, that is the way that Hashem is going to reveal himself to Klal Yisrael. So when a person walks around and they say, I don't see Hashem in my life. I keep hearing there's a Rebbeinu Shalom, he's all over the place, he's everywhere. And Hashem should reveal himself. I don't see Hashem in my life. Says Rav Gamliel, it's very simple. If you are making yourself someone that is worthy of having HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveal himself in your life, because you are approaching HaKadosh Baruch Hu with submissiveness and servitude and humility, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself to you. But if you come with your zich, which means your ego, in place, and if you come with all your accomplishments on your hand, and if you come with what you feel is your personal greatness, and then you approach Hashem in davening, Hashem says, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. You're talking about yourself. That's why when we come to daven to Hashem, we never present our zechusim, our merits to Hashem, as a reason why I should answer our tefillos. As we will see, when we approach HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we have nothing, Hashem. We deserve nothing, Hashem. And yet, you're willing to answer us and our prayers simply because we are members of Klal Yisrael, as we're going to see going further in this Tehillim. And he writes like this: Lifnei Ephraim uBinyamin uMenashe, and before Ephraim, Binyamin, and Menashe, Oira es gvurasecha, awaken and arouse your strength, Ulecha lishuasa lanu, and you will be a salvation for us. Says Rav Gamliel, look in Rashi, and Rashi says like this: Asav Anav Yoimel Hashem Yisbarach. Asav is saying to Hashem, Ulecha lishuasa lanu, lecha noe lo hishia es bnei Yisrael. To you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it is fitting that you should redeem and you should save Klal Yisrael. Whether we are deserving of the salvation, and when we are not deserving of Hashem's salvation. Now, are we ever really deserving of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's salvation? Have we ever done so much worthiness in the eyes of Hashem? We're so redeeming in the eyes of the Rebbeinu Shalom. We have accomplished so much of our obligations and the expectations and our responsibilities. We deserve salvation. We learn from here. Every single person is able to request from Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, save me from all of my suffering, all of my difficulties, all my challenges. Even if you look at my actions, you look at what I have, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you look at what I accomplished, I'm not worthy of it at all. An amazing, amazing idea. If a person will buckle down and they will have true emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they will in fact believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can and He will, if He so sees fit to it, to do anything that He wants, even though that I myself am lacking the merits to receive His blessing and His salvation and His goodness, I just have to ask and ask and ask, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu can fulfill my will. And that's why it says, you are to us a salvation. When a person believes in the salvation, that the only salvation in the world is going to come from Hashem, nobody else can save me, that brings about the salvation itself, and that is for us meaning what? Meaning that since that we are meaning we believe in you, Hashem, in the schus of our emunah, of our belief, of our trust and our faith in you, Hashem, in the schus of us calling out to you, Hashem, and not anywhere else, in the merit of believing solely in you, that you are the answer to all of our prayers, in that merit, liyeshua lanu, you should be a salvation to us. Which means, although that if we look at our record, our scorecard, not doing so great, we've got, okay, we did our mitzvahs, we did our Torah, we davened today, very good. But there's a lot of other things on the other side of the report card. You know, it's like, so, you know, your kids come home with a report card, and wow, great, you got A. What's that? What is that grade over there? Tati, don't worry about that. Everybody gets a bad grade in that class. Really? Everybody gets a bad grade in that class. Honestly, okay, maybe I'll just call the teacher and find out, did everybody get a... No, don't call the teacher. Please don't call the teacher. So why not? Everybody got a bad grade. I want to find out why everyone's getting bad grades. No, okay, not everybody got a bad grade, but I got a bad grade. Well, why'd you get a bad grade? Well, that teacher doesn't like me. Well, why doesn't the teacher like you? I don't know. She just, from the first day, she didn't like me. Why not? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? I don't know. Okay, it comes out, she doesn't like you because you are mechutzif, because you're brazen to her, and you come to class late every single day, and you walk out in the middle of class, and you don't do your work, and you don't try in your exams, and you bother her by talking to other people in the class, so she doesn't like you. You're not trying. So we come with our report card to the Rebbeinu Shalom. So maybe in certain areas, Baruch Hashem, we can give ourselves a good pat on the back, we did well. But we all have areas in our avodas Hashem that need a lot of work and a lot of correction. So I have only one schus that I can stand before HaKadosh Baruch Hu with, and that is, Rebbeinu Shalom, I don't deserve anything. I know that I don't deserve anything. I'm not worthy of having your salvation, but I have something very precious, and that's called emunah. I believe deep down in my heart of hearts that you, Rebbeinu Shalom, are the only one that can come and save me. And since I believe with that wholeheartedly, and that's a chus, you should save me, and you should bring me an answer to my tefillahs. And therefore, even the most far-off Jew in the world, even the Jew that is struggling the most with whatever challenges they're going through, even the one that wavers between Shabbos and Kashrus and all the different things that we're supposed to do. But if they have deep, deep levels of emunah inside of them, and they believe in the Rebbeinu Shalom, and they put all their faith in Hashem, that He's the one that's going to take care of it, there's a very great chance that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to listen carefully to their tefillos, to their prayers, and He's going to rescue them and give them the salvation that they want. I know a person who, I don't think that I would call them the most religious person in the world at all. However, their emunah b'HaKadosh Baruch Hu, their belief that Hashem is the only answer and the only address that you're going to daven to, because of this person's unwavering faith in the Rebbeinu Shalom, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has made miracle after miracle after miracle for this person, constantly giving them bracha, salvation, refuah, shidduchim, blessings, all different things. Why? Because they proved to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that when I'm going to focus in all of my spiritual energies on you, Hashem, I believe as much as anybody else, maybe even more, you are the address and the source of all salvation, of all giving, of all bracha, of all chesed. It's all you, Hashem. Says Rabinovich over here, that's what we're coming to Hashem with in the gullus that Klal Yisrael finds itself in. We want to be redeemed. So don't think that if you solve the problem of anti-Semitism in the world, now there's going to be redemption. Don't think that if you vote for the up-and-coming elections of WZO, now suddenly you're going to solve all the problems. There's going to be a gula, there'll be a redemption. It doesn't work like that. Says the Rebbeinu Shalom, if you believe in me wholeheartedly and you pour out your heart in tefillah like that, then I can answer your prayers. When I realize that you understand that I am the source of salvation, I then will be your salvation. And it goes on further. And Elokim Hashivenu, Hashem, you should return us, and enlighten your countenance towards us, and answer our prayers. This is what we're begging for. For 2,000 years of the exile already, we're begging HaKadosh Baruch Hu, return us, Hashem. You think we want to be in Tarzana, California for the rest of our lives? Okay, it's very comfortable, houses are nice, the streets are quiet on Shabbos. Imagine, the streets are more quiet over here on Shabbos than some of the best neighborhoods in the world. So nice, peaceful, pleasant, air conditioning works good, go to the store, there's plenty of food to eat. It's great. What, we want to be here forever? No. We want to be where there's going to be v'hoyer panecha, where you could, in your countenance can shine upon us. That's only going to be when we get to Yerushalayim Yerkodesh, when there's going to be a Mashiach. And therefore he writes, Hashem Elokim Tzvaka is Hashem. Elokim Tzvaka is the God of might. He's the Tzvaka is like the God of legions. He's the master, commander of the army of the Jewish people. Ad Mosai Ashanta B'Tfilas Amecha. Until when, he asks, when will the wrath, when you fix the afterglow of your wrath to the prayers of your people? Meaning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why aren't you listening to us? Why are you getting upset with our prayers? We're trying. We're making efforts. We're coming to shul. We're opening up Tehillim. We've been learning what the words of Tehillim. How long will it take before you hear us in the right way? And then the verse says after that the following: V'echaltam lechem dima, you fed them with the bread of tears. V'tashkemai b'demois shalish, you made them drain their measured drink with tears. So we've been davening and davening and davening, and we don't hear the answers, Hashem. So now, what do we end up doing after that? We start pouring out the buckets of tears to you. Now, why is that? Says Rav Gamliel the following idea. He says, Bizman sheyesh choroin af milifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. At a time when there is Hashem's wrath and fury against the Jewish people, Rotzaleimer tfiloisav shel ha'adam einam miskablos l'rotzain. What does that mean? That's a time when our prayers are not being answered by Hashem. Why would Hashem not answer our prayers? You're all parents. You know that when your children cry, you're not spiteful, you're not wrathful. It doesn't matter how small or how big and grown up they are. When your child cries out to you, you come running. If it's 1 o'clock in the morning and you're exhausted and you had a long day and you start hearing those cries of the baby, yeah, the first reaction might be, oh, again? But every mother knows that when you hear the cries, you jump up out of bed and you walk over and you try to calm that baby down. Maybe it's nursing, maybe it's a bottle, maybe it's some Cheerios, maybe it's rocking them on your shoulder, maybe it's singing a song. Whatever you can do when the baby starts to cry, you come running. When your young child comes home from school, 8 or 9 years old, and he has that face on him, something did not go well in school that day, and he looks like he's about to burst out into tears. So if you are a sensitive parent and you can look at them in the face and see what is going on, you are right there together with them. You are listening to all their cries and all their pain. And when that same kid is 19 years old, or 20 years old, or 25 years old, and they're going through a difficulty in life, and they're calling out to you, Tati, Mommy, Abba, Iba, Daddy, Mommy, I need some help. I'm right there for them. I'll come running. I'll do what I need to do to help them through their pain. So why would HaKadosh Baruch Hu not answer our prayers? We are His children. He is our Father, Avinu Shebashamayim, our Father in heaven. A father is always willing and waiting to come and help his child. A mother hears the tears. She can't, mothers hear the baby cry before the baby cries. I cannot tell you how many countless nights when our children were infants. My mother said, did you hear the baby? No, the baby's not crying, go to sleep. 30 seconds later, the baby's crying. A mother is in tune with the feelings. So why is HaKadosh Baruch Hu not answering our prayers? Because there's charon af. He's angry with us. And when He's angry with our behavior, He's angry with what we are doing, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a difficult time answering our prayers. Ha'etz l'kach. So what do we do? So what should we do then? Okay, Hashem's upset with us. He's angry with us. There's midas hadin in the world right now. There's an attribute of judgment, and that's in the world that is flaring against the world and the Jewish people. What do? Hachaltem lechem dima. So that's what it says in the next verse. You should eat the bread of tears, but tishkemai b'demois shlish, be consumed with many, many tears. What does that mean? Yarbe b'bechiyos b'demois shlish. You should increase the amount of crying in your tefillah, in your prayers, b'demois shlish, with an enormous amount of tears. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu can't say no. When, no matter how angry the Rebbeinu Shalom is at the world, at Klal Yisrael, he's disappointed. But when he sees that we're crying with sincere tears to him, he cannot say no. He cannot answer no to his children. Where do we know this from? How do we know that tears will always make a dent? They'll always pierce the heavens. They'll get to a place where regular prayer does not allow us to enter. Because it says in the Gemara the following: Omar Rabbi Elazar, Miyoim shenecha Beis Hamikdash, from the day that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed 2,000 years ago, and we are wandering around in Golus already for 2,000 years. We've been flung from every single nation you could imagine across the four corners of the universe, and still we are spread out throughout the world, and we're still in the exile. And we know that from the time that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, the gates of prayer were locked. They were closed and they were locked. Prayer doesn't work. The Beis HaMikdash was like a pipeline to Shemayim, to the heavens. When the Beis HaMikdash was in the world, whether you were in Yerushalayim, or you were in Sfas, or you were in Babel, no matter where you were, all the prayers went through the pipeline of the Beis HaMikdash, shoo, shot right to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, that pipeline of tefillah, of kedusha, which would elevate our prayers and bring them up to Hashem, it was locked. We don't have the power of tefillah the way that we used to have. However, says the Gemara, Shenemar gam ki ezak ve'eshava shasam tefilasi, like it says in Eicha, that I cry out ve'eshava shasam tefilasi, but you don't hear my prayers. Afal pi sheshare tefillah nenalu. However, even though that the gates of prayer have been locked, share demois lo nenalu. The gates of tears have never been locked. Shenema, like it says in Tehillim, Shama tefilasi Hashem. Hashem, listen to my prayers. V'shavasi, and my supplications. Ha'azino, you should bend your ear. El dimasi, to my tears. Al ticharish, do not be silent. Says the Gemara, and that's how he wants to explain this verse over here. It is true that since that the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed, our regular prayers can no longer work to Hashem. They're not going to pierce the heavens anymore. But there's one thing that we still have in our ammunition, and those are tears. The tears, as Rav Hirsch writes elsewhere, it's the sweat of the neshama. Why does a person sweat? When they're working hard, they sweat. When they go to the gym and they do all their reps and they do all the whole workout thing over there, so they begin to schwitz. When you have to go hiking up the mountain and you're hiking and you're going, you begin to schwitz, you begin to sweat. Whenever a person works out, whenever a person works hard, whenever they get physical, that's when they begin to sweat. What does it mean that the tears are the sweat of the neshama? When your neshama is working hard and it's davening and it's pushing itself to limits that it never reached before, so then it's natural that you're going to get to a place where you're schwitzing and you're davening, and those are the tears that are going to come. Which means that your tefillah, your prayer, is on a whole other madrega, a whole new level. It's the highest level of davening you have, and on that, the gates were never closed. Tears go through. Regular prayer doesn't go through. And therefore, as we go through this Tehillim over here, we begin to realize that when I believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the only address that's going to hear my prayers, He's the only one that's going to answer my tefillah and give me a Yeshua salvation, and I focus all my energy on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I daven to the point where I get to the place of tears, Hashem says, then you're worthy. You deserve. I can answer your request because I am the one that can answer all the requests. Just like Yosef at Tzaddik with all of his greatness realized it's only me. You with all of your success, your power, the good things you've done, the mitzvahs you have in your up your sleeve, all of that, you recognize me, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you're crying. I'm going to answer everything. There's a Maisa, fascinating story of a couple that lived in America, and they were married for many years, and Rahman al-Zan, they had no children. And they tried everything, as all the stories go. They tried the doctors and they tried all the treatments. They tried everything. They went to Eretz Yisrael. They got brachas from all of the great rabbis. They went to the kibbutz tzaddikim, to the graves of all the tzaddikim of previous generations, and they davened and they poured out their hearts. Nothing worked. They finally had a meeting with one of the biggest fertility specialist in all of New York. And he is going to decide what is the next step that they should take to try to give them the schus, the merit of having children. They go and they run the battery of tests, and the doctor is looking through their files of all of the years of the previous doctors they went to, all the treatments, everything that they partook of. And after he sees the results to the new battery of tests, the new round of exams, and he looks through their files, he calls them into his office, and with that sad face that only a doctor could make, he tells this couple, I'm sorry to inform you, you will never, ever have children. Medically, there's nothing at all that we can do. They're devastated, of course, you could imagine. And they decide, you know what, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided that we cannot have children of our own, let us at least adopt a child. We'll get them from an infant stage, we'll raise them as our own, and this will be the child that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives to us. Now, they were a religious couple in America. Very hard to find an adoption agency in America that's dealing only with Jewish children. So they called an adoption agency in Eretz Yisrael, and they said, we are interested in adopting a Jewish child from a Jewish mother and a father. That is the child that we want to raise. When you have one for us, please let us know, we'd like one. So they said, well, listen, when it comes up, everything moves pretty quickly. You're in America. You're going to come right away? They said, we will come right away. You give us a few days' notice. We'll get on the first plane possible. We'll fly across the world. We'll be there, whatever you need. So sure enough, several months go by. And one early morning, while the husband and wife are still sleeping in bed, they get a phone call. It's the adoption agency in Eretz Yisrael. They said, Mr. and Mrs. Schwartz, whatever their name was, we just received a child who's going up for adoption starting today. A Jewish mother, a Jewish father, just as you requested. If you'd like this young boy, it's all yours. But you have to be here immediately. They said, no problem, we'll be there as soon as we can get on a flight. They wake up, they start making calls, they get on a flight that day. The next thing you know, 24 hours later, they land in Eretz Yisrael. They go from Ben Gurion Airport straight to the adoption agency. They come in, they are so excited, and they are greeted warmly, and they're greeted kindly, and they're given a very large application that they have to fill out. And the woman behind the desk says, fill out the application, and once we get all of the paperwork in place and all the signatures on the dotted line, the baby is going to be yours. And the husband and wife are so excited. They're going to fill out the papers, and they're going to leave Eretz Yisrael with a baby in their hands. And the husband begins filling out the application. It's going very well. And he's going through it very swiftly and briskly, answering every single question that is there. Suddenly his wife notices that the husband has stalled. And he's just staring at the application. And she walks over to the husband and says, is everything okay? And he says, no. She says, what's the matter? He said, I can't answer this question. She says, what do you mean? He said, look at the question. And the question is, can you promise us that you will love this child more than anyone else in the entire world? She said, well, what's the problem? We've been waiting for this child all of our lives. Why can't you answer the question? And he looks at his wife and he says, because I don't love anyone more than I love Hashem. And I don't think I'll be able to even love this child more than I love Hashem. So I can't answer the question. They want me to say yes. I can't answer yes. That would be lying. I can't do that. His wife says, come on, what's the big deal? Just write yes. Just write yes, and we'll get the baby. He says, I can't do that to Hashem. I will never love anyone more than I love Hashem. Now remember, this is a man who's gone already the last 15 years without children and was told by the doctor, you're never a child of your own, and still he loves HaKadosh Baruch Hu more than he loves anyone. She says, well, ask the lady behind the counter. Maybe you can skip the question. So he walks over to this woman and he says, I'm sorry to ask you, but I can't answer yes over here. I will never love anyone more than I love Hashem. Can I skip the question? And she says, I'm sorry, sir. You cannot skip the question. If any question on the application is not answered, or it's answered in the wrong way, we will not be able to send you home with that child. He looks at his wife. He looks at the paper. He looks at the woman. He says, I can't answer yes. I love no one more than I love Hashem. She said, sir, if you don't answer yes, you're not going home with the baby. He looks at his wife again. And she tells her husband, if you cannot answer yes, because your love of Hashem is so great, and you will look at it as disgracing your relationship with the Ribbono Shel Olam, I am 100% okay with that. And you don't have to answer the question and give back the application, and we will walk out of this office without taking home a child for ourselves. This child is not going to get in the way of your relationship with Hashem. And the husband looks at his amazing wife of Emunah, and he closes up the application, and he hands it to the woman behind the desk, and he says, thank you for your time. We'll be leaving now. They walk out of the adoption agency, and there's like a long stairway that's leading up to it. And the husband walks off to the right side, and the wife walks off to the left side. And at exactly the same moment, the husband and the wife turn their eyes towards Hashem. And they say, Ribbono Shel Olam, you know how hard it's been for us all these years without children. You know that the doctors told us there's no hope anymore. We'll never have a child for ourselves. So at least let us adopt a child. And even that now has been taken away from us because our love for you transcends the love for anything in this world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, at this moment in our lives, we have nowhere else to turn. And we are turning all of our prayers and all of our tears and all of our belief only to you, Hashem. All we want is a child to be able to bring into this world and to raise it with Torah and with mitzvahs and to live in a beautiful family. Please, Hashem. And the husband and the wife are pouring out their tefillahs, and they are both bawling tears to the Ribbono Shel Olam, crying and sobbing. It's all you, Hashem. And just more than 9 months after this expression of tefillah, of emunah, of tefillah, of bechiyos, of tears to Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the only address and can answer anything. He sent them a healthy baby to them, and it was not the last, it was only the first of their children. Says Tehillim over here, we might not be worthy. We might not be deserving. And our prayers regular are not going to be answered. But when you pour out into the world of tefillah, the mois, the tears, the bechiyos, the bakashas, the davening, the requests, the tears to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, on that, Hashem, al dimasi al ticharash, to my tears do not remain silent. Hashem says, and that's chus of your emunah and your tears, and that I'm going to answer all of your prayers. And this, as we'll see even next time more, Bez Hashem, the key to the redemption of the Jewish people in Galus is not going to be how much we do to try to expedite and speed up the Galus itself. It's how much we are pouring out our tefillahs, recognizing in our emunah, Hashem, you put us here. Hashem, you'll take us out of here. And the more that I will recognize and realize and pour my heart out to you, the more you're going to listen to our prayers. May we be zeicher that whatever it is that we need in our lives, whatever siyata d'shemaya, whatever brachas, whatever salvation, through our emunah, our prayers, and our tears, may HaKadosh Baruch Hu answer all of our tefillahs.